Imagine walking into your bedroom and catching your wife mid-affair with one of your friends. You don't scream, you don't rage. You sit down and press play. The video you recorded flips their world upside down. But that's only the beginning. What happens next is not just revenge, it's a masterclass in calm, calculated justice. It was supposed to be a regular business trip, a 2-day conference in Portland, a few meetings, some networking, nothing exciting, just routine. But when David Carter's biggest client canceled at the last minute, he figured he'd surprise his wife with an early return. Maybe even take her out to dinner. That was the plan. Instead, David parked 2 blocks from his house, killing the engine and sitting in silence. Something felt off. He couldn't explain it. No text from Rachel all day. No response to his last call. Just an odd weight in his chest. He stepped out, leaving his suitcase behind, and made his way down the sidewalk under the fading evening light. As he approached the house, he noticed one strange detail. All the lights were off, except for a soft, flickering glow from the bedroom window. Odd, considering Rachel usually kept the living room lamp on when home. Quietly, David unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The house was silent, except for one sound that hit him like a punch to the chest. Moaning. Low, breathy, unmistakable. He froze. The noise stopped him mid-step. For a moment, his brain refused to register it. Then came the soft creak of the bed. A laugh. A gasp. And just like that, any doubts he had evaporated. He didn't scream. Didn't charge in like some cliché from a movie. Instead, David moved like a shadow through the hallway, every step measured and silent. The bedroom door was cracked open. He pushed it gently. There they were. His wife, Rachel, tangled up with a man he recognized immediately. Kevin, a former college buddy who'd always stayed too close, always lingered too long at parties, always had too much to say about Rachel's appearance. They didn't see him, not at first. So David stood there, unnoticed, for several seconds longer than most people could stomach. Then with calm precision, he stepped inside and clapped. Once, twice, 3 times. "Bravo," he said, voice steady. "Hell of a performance." The effect was instant. Kevin flung himself off the bed like he'd touched a live wire, scrambling for the nearest blanket. Rachel froze, wide-eyed, her mouth opening but no sound coming out. David walked to the chair by the window and sat down. "Don't stop on my account," he said, crossing his legs. "This is clearly more important than answering your phone." The room filled with frantic energy, Kevin fumbling to dress, Rachel pulling the sheet to her chest like it could protect her from what was coming. Rachel tried first. "David, it's not—" "Don't," he said sharply. "Let's skip the part where you pretend I didn't just watch you cheat in real time." Kevin stepped forward, hands raised. "Look, man, it just happened." "Shut up," David cut in, his voice low and direct. "You're not in this conversation." Silence. Thick, suffocating. David leaned back and looked at Rachel. This was the woman he had married, the woman he had trusted for nearly a decade. And now she was just another liar. Another person who thought they could have everything without consequences. "Tell me," he said, voice colder now. "Was it the thrill? The secrecy? Or were you just bored?" Rachel's lips trembled. "Please, let's talk about this." "Talk?" David laughed, short, humorless. "You had months to talk. You chose this instead." Kevin shifted uncomfortably. David ignored him. "I was supposed to be in Portland right now," David continued. "You'd have never known I found out. But I did. And I planned for this." Rachel's face went pale. "What do you mean?" He pulled his phone from his pocket and, without another word, tapped the screen. The room filled with audio. Intimate sounds, laughter, whispers that made Rachel's face drain of color and Kevin stagger back like he'd been slapped. "You recorded us," she whispered, stunned. "Oh, sweetheart," David said, eyes locked on her. "I recorded everything. And this was just the beginning." Rachel stared at the phone in David's hand like it might explode. Kevin had already backed into a corner, his arms crossed over his chest, as if he could shield himself from the fallout. David let the recording play for a few more seconds, just long enough to let Rachel hear her own voice, saying something unforgivable. Then he paused it. You know what the worst part is? He asked, looking at her calmly. It's not the cheating. It's the stupidity. You actually thought I wouldn't notice. Rachel opened her mouth, but he held up a hand. You changed your gym routine. You kept your phone on silent. You started leaving the house with makeup in your bag even though you just needed groceries. You thought I wouldn't catch on. Kevin stepped forward again. Look, man, this isn't right. You can't just record people and… David turned to him, eyes cold. Kevin, shut up. Kevin stopped talking. I had options, David said, turning back to Rachel. Option 1, yell, break things, maybe take a swing at someone. But that's what you'd expect. That's easy. That's messy. That lets you play the victim. Rachel blinked rapidly, trying to hold back tears. Option 2, David continued, be methodical, be smart, hit you where it actually hurts. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a flash drive. You know what this is? Rachel didn't answer. This is you, in high definition. This little USB contains a compilation of your greatest hits. All the proof anyone would ever need. Kevin's voice cracked. Dude, what are you going to do with it? David looked at him, calm as ever. You'll see. He crossed the room and plugged the drive into the bedroom TV. A few clicks later, the screen came to life. Rachel's betrayal played in silence, the visuals doing all the damage the audio hadn't already accomplished. Rachel gasped, turning away. Kevin looked like he might be sick. Turn it off, Rachel whispered. David didn't respond. Please, David, this is enough. David stepped back, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the screen. You didn't think it was too much when you brought him into my home. You didn't stop when you were laughing with him in my bed. Don't ask me for mercy you never gave. The room stayed silent, aside from the hum of the TV. David picked up his phone again and began tapping. Rachel noticed. What are you doing? She asked, her voice rising. Sending it, he said simply. Her breath caught. To who? He didn't answer, but a moment later her phone buzzed. Then again, and again. She scrambled to grab it. As she scrolled, her face twisted into panic. You sent this to my parents? David nodded. Your boss, too. Your best friend. A few of our mutual friends. Your gym trainer. You're insane, she gasped. No, he said. I'm careful. She lunged at him, trying to grab the phone. David stepped back easily, pocketing it again. You don't get to touch anything anymore, he said. Not my phone, not my money, not even my name. Kevin moved toward the door. I'm out of here. I'm not part of this. David cut him off with a quiet, deadly tone. Oh, you're part of this. You climbed into my bed. That made it personal. Kevin backed away. Rachel dropped to the edge of the bed, hands shaking. What do you want from me? She asked. David walked over to his bag and pulled out a folder. He tossed it on the bed beside her. Open it. She stared for a second, then slowly did as he said. Inside were printouts, bank statements, credit card receipts, hotel bookings, all with her name, all tracing back to weeks, months of deceit. What is this? She whispered. Proof, David said, of where our money went, of the lies you told, and at the very back, you'll find a divorce agreement. You walk away with nothing, not a cent. You can't do this, she said, panic building. I already did, David replied. The lawyer just needs your signature. Tears welled up in her eyes, but David had no sympathy left. Kevin tried again. This is going too far. David turned on him with a stare that shut him up instantly. Rachel stood suddenly. You think you've won? You think this is justice? People will hear about this. I'll tell them you were abusive, that you trapped me. David stepped forward, unfazed. Try it, please, because everything in that folder, the receipts, the logs, the recordings, they don't just show you're cheating. They show how you siphoned money out of our accounts, how you tried to use me. Rachel shook her head. This will ruin me. David nodded once. That's the idea. She looked ready to collapse. Kevin had already edged toward the door, clearly realizing there was no saving this. David picked up the folder and walked to the door. One last thing, he said, turning around. Your parents? They already called me. Your dad said you're not welcome in their home. Rachel's lips parted in disbelief. And your boss, David added, HR is expecting you tomorrow morning. Not for work, for your termination meeting. With that, he stepped out the door, folder in hand, and didn't look back. David didn't go home. He didn't want to hear Rachel's voice through the walls or see Kevin's car pull away. Instead, he drove to a quiet bar on the edge of town, a place where no one knew his name and the bartender didn't ask questions. By the time he finished his second drink, his phone was vibrating nonstop. Calls, texts, voicemails. The fallout had begun. The first voicemail was from Rachel's mother. She was crying, nearly incoherent. "David, please, tell me this isn't real. Tell me there's some mistake." Her voice cracked. "This isn't who she is. She made a mistake." David deleted the message. The next one was from Rachel's father. His tone was cold, measured. "She's not welcome here. Whatever comes next, she brought it on herself." David saved that one. He stayed at a hotel that night. The next morning, the storm was in full swing. A friend texted, "Dude, what happened? HR just pulled Rachel into a closed meeting. Everyone's talking." By noon, another message came in. "She's out. Fired." Rachel had always built her identity around her job. Public relations executive, well-respected, carefully manicured image. But the footage David sent had undone years of effort in minutes. There was no spinning her way out of it. Not when the video included her mocking David by name. Not when her affair partner was seen clearly. Not when it all took place in her own home. David didn't respond to any of her messages. But that night she showed up at his apartment. She banged on the door, frantic. "David, please, just let me talk to you." He watched through the peephole for a while before opening the door. She looked broken. Her voice trembled. "I need to talk. Please." David leaned against the doorframe. "Now you want to talk?" She stepped forward, desperate. "You don't understand. Kevin's gone. He bailed when he saw the video. My job's gone. My family won't answer my calls. I have nothing." He didn't flinch. "You still had a choice. You picked this." Tears ran down her face. "I know I messed up, but I didn't think—" "No, you didn't," David interrupted. "You didn't think about how it would affect me, or what it would cost you." Rachel reached out. "Please, I'll do anything. Just help me fix this." David stepped back inside and returned holding the folder she thought she'd escaped. "Sign the papers." She stared at it like it was a death sentence. "I have no money," she said quietly. "You did," David said. "Until you used it on hotel rooms, gifts, and lies. I just took back what was mine." She hesitated, then slowly signed. David took the folder and nodded once. "It's done." Rachel didn't move. "Can I just stay for the night?" David raised an eyebrow. "You want to sleep in my apartment after everything you've done?" "I have nowhere else to go. That's not my problem anymore." He closed the door in her face. For the rest of the week, the fallout spread like wildfire. Her friends began distancing themselves. Many of them had seen the video. Others simply didn't want to be associated with the drama. Social media turned on her. Comments under old photos became battlegrounds of judgment and gossip. She tried reaching out to people privately, but the story had already shaped itself. David hadn't needed to say much. The evidence spoke louder than any explanation she could give. 2 days later, Rachel showed up at his office. His assistant buzzed him. "There's a woman here, says she's your wife." David sighed. "Tell her to leave." "I already did," the assistant replied. "She won't." David stepped into the lobby. Rachel was sitting there, arms wrapped around herself, looking smaller than he'd ever seen her. "Go home, Rachel," he said. "I don't have one." He said nothing. She stood, walked up to him, voice shaking. "I know you hate me. I know I destroyed everything. But I'm begging you, don't leave me like this." He looked at her carefully. "You destroyed yourself. I just turned the lights on so everyone could see it." She tried to speak again, but he turned and walked away. By the end of the week, Rachel had been erased from almost every part of David's life. Her name was removed from their bank accounts. The joint lease on their lake house, terminated. The photos on his social media that once showed vacations and dinner parties were gone. Their wedding album, their anniversary trip, the weekend they got the dog, all deleted. Rachel, however, was not done trying. She started calling from unknown numbers. She sent emails begging for one last conversation. One night, she left a handwritten letter at his office. It was 6 pages long. David didn't read past the second paragraph. Then she showed up at his parents' house. His mother called him afterward, shaken. She just stood there crying, she said. We told her to leave. She will, David replied, eventually. But it wasn't just Rachel unraveling. Kevin, the man she cheated with, wasn't spared. The video circulated fast, first among David's circle, then among people who knew Kevin. It made its way to Kevin's office, where the HR department didn't find it as entertaining as he'd hoped. He lost his job the same day Rachel did, and unlike her, he didn't have any savings. David didn't send the video to Kevin's employer. He didn't have to. People did it for him. Mutual friends turned their backs on both of them. Invitations stopped coming. Texts went unanswered. Rachel had built her life around appearances, being admired, being respected. Now people saw through her, and they didn't want the mess that followed. The divorce moved quickly. Rachel contested the settlement at first. Her new attorney tried to argue she deserved something. Half of the house, spousal support, maybe even alimony. But David's lawyer presented every recording, every receipt, every transfer from their shared account that ended up funding hotel rooms and vacations for two. Rachel's lawyer dropped her after 2 meetings. The court finalized the divorce in under a month. Rachel walked away with nothing. No property, no money, no assets. Even the car she'd been driving was leased under David's name. He took it back the morning after the settlement. She sent one final message. I hope this was worth it. David didn't reply. But not everything was as easy as cutting ties. David had good days and bad. There were moments when he'd drive past a familiar street and remember a dinner or a fight they'd once had there. Some nights he'd sit in silence, wondering how he'd missed it for so long. Other nights he'd scroll through old messages, not to reminisce, but to confirm he hadn't imagined the betrayal. He didn't feel satisfaction. Not really. Not even as Rachel's life imploded. There was no joy in watching someone fall apart. But there was relief. She no longer had control. No more lies. No more manipulation. Freedom was enough. Weeks passed. Then months. David started traveling again, focused on work. He reconnected with old friends, the ones who hadn't picked sides or who had backed him quietly from the beginning. One weekend, a colleague invited him to a group hike. He almost declined, then changed his mind. It felt good to be around people who didn't look at him with pity, but Rachel kept resurfacing. Once he saw her at a grocery store. She looked thinner, worn out. She spotted him and hesitated like she might come over. David shook his head once. She didn't move. Another time, a friend forwarded a screenshot of her new social media account. Different name, no photos. Just a quote about starting over. The comments were empty. One evening, she left a voicemail. I just wanted you to know I'm getting help. Therapy. I'm trying to understand why I did what I did. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know it's too late. But I hope one day you'll believe I'm sorry. David saved that message. Not because he needed it, but because it marked something. An end. The chaos had passed. The damage had been done. And now all that was left was the silence after a storm. Months passed. Seasons changed. Life moved forward. David didn't talk about what happened unless someone asked directly. Even then, he only gave the short version. We divorced. It was messy. She cheated. He never shared the full story unless he knew someone needed to hear it. Someone going through the same thing, someone doubting their own instincts, someone who felt stuck. He had no interest in dragging her name through the mud any more than he already had. The damage was done. Publicly, permanently. Eventually, people stopped bringing up Rachel. New coworkers never heard her name. Friends learned not to mention her unless it was relevant. She faded into the background of David's life like an outdated file. Archived, never deleted, but untouched. But the consequences for her didn't end. David got word that she moved back in with her younger sister after being evicted from her apartment. Kevin had completely vanished. Some said he moved out of state. Others said he was living with his parents, unemployed and bitter. Rachel tried applying for new jobs, but her references didn't return calls. A few recruiters dug up the scandal. Some employers didn't even need to. They remembered the video. It had been shared too widely to fully erase. The internet has a long memory. The people she once leaned on, they moved on. Her best friend stopped replying to her texts. Her former coworkers blocked her. Even the gym she used to frequent quietly canceled her membership. And David? He rebuilt. He sold the house, traveled, signed on to a major design project in New York that consumed his energy in a good way. He didn't rush into dating. When people asked, he always said the same thing. I'm not avoiding love. I'm just not going to tolerate anything less than honesty. There was no bitterness in his voice when he said it, just clarity. Eventually, someone new entered his life. Not flashy, not dramatic, just a calm, steady presence who asked questions instead of assuming, who listened instead of deflecting. He didn't rush anything. They took it slow. They talked about boundaries, about expectations, about what trust should feel like. It was different this time, and that difference was everything. One day, David received a letter in the mail, handwritten, no return address, but he recognized the handwriting. It was from Rachel. She apologized again, this time without excuses. She admitted that what hurt her most wasn't losing the marriage, or her job, or the friends. It was realizing how little she had valued someone who gave her everything. She didn't ask for a second chance, didn't ask for a meeting. She only said this: I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know you didn't deserve any of what I did to you. You were loyal, and I broke something I didn't understand how to protect. David read it once, then again. He didn't cry. He didn't feel angry. He just felt done. Not the angry kind of done, but the peaceful kind. The chapter was closed, not locked, not hidden, just over. Some people asked if his revenge had gone too far, if sharing the video, exposing her, ruining her career, had crossed a line. David didn't argue. He understood why people asked, but he also knew this. What he did wasn't about vengeance for the sake of pain. It was about accountability. Rachel hadn't just made a mistake. She made a series of calculated choices. Choices that cost someone else everything. He didn't hit her. He didn't stalk her. He didn't threaten her. He simply gave the truth a stage. And sometimes the truth is punishment enough. In the end, David didn't destroy Rachel. She did. He just made sure no one else had to find out the hard way.